welcome Chad Bush.
Joseph, thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate it. A lot of fun to be with you. And yeah, we've had some time together, and this will be fun as well, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so the broadcast booth is the last chapter professionally of us being connected. I was very, very happy to endorse and recommend you to become a regular play-by-play man in the booth at Wayne State University doing football. You've, of course, gone on since then to do larger college venues, but we both started at Orchard Lake St. Mary's. So take me from Orchard Lake St. Mary's and give me your biopic as an all-state football player into Division I, Division II, and then, of course, now sports broadcasting.
Yeah, man. I mean, it started at St. Mary's, obviously. You were a senior. I was a freshman. The journey took me to Wayne State. And one of the reasons I went to Wayne State was because of you, directly and indirectly. My brother Nate went to Akron, as you know.
Played for Jerry Faust, former Notre Dame coach, brought him in. Nate Bush, by the way, Chad's brother, could have played damn near anywhere, had offers from Tennessee, ended up going with Faust to Akron, and then ends up at Wayne State from, just wanting to get more playing time being featured. But that guy could have played anywhere, anytime.
Yeah, and he went to Wayne State really because of you. And, I mean, I say that, straight up. And I think Nate would say the same thing. I know he would. And to have an opportunity to play with you, you'd already set the tempo at Wayne State. This was a new football brand, and Nate bought into that, and you probably sold him on coming too. But, yeah, so that was –
I just said, dude, you'll get on the field right now.
And he did.
We will give you the ball tomorrow. You will come off the bus. We will send you your equipment in advance. The jock strap will be freshly washed. When you get off the bus, somebody will hand you the ball, and the lights will already be on.
Yeah, I mean, he left Akron on a Monday, got to Detroit on a Tuesday, showed up at practice, and as a wide receiver, was itching to get on the field. You told him there would be minutes, and you didn't disappoint because he got on the field on a Saturday. He got one or two practices in.
I still can't believe it. I can't believe that college football allowed it at that time. You could, if you hadn't played, you could be immediately eligible by transferring down, even during the season. Some teams had already played games, right? He shows up and takes a kick to the house on the first time he touches the ball.
Yeah, punt return for a touchdown. It was one of 3 touchdowns that day. He had a punt return for a touchdown, a touchdown catch, and then I think he either caught another pass for touchdown.
No. He had 2 returns. One of them got called back.
Okay.
He had 2 returns for touchdowns.
Okay.
One of them got called back, and then he caught a touchdown pass, all within 57 minutes of getting off the bus for his first game at Wayne State.
He was itching. He was itching to get in, and the opportunity was there, and
But you had a hell of a career of your own at St. Mary's.
Yeah, it was an all-state.
Did you
wide
have
receiver.
a cup of coffee at CMU?
I did.
Yeah.
I was an all-state wide receiver at Orchard Lake St. Mary's. We threw the ball 4 times a game, and I got 3 of the 4 balls. And God bless George Porritt. But it was a run-oriented offense, which you thrived in.
Yep.
But Nate and I, as wide receivers, didn't get as many opportunities. But whatever. Not many people did in the early 90s either in the pass game. It's not like it is now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, after a career there, I was offered an opportunity to go to Central Michigan as a gray shirt. First year, walk on, pay your way. Promise guarantee, though, that the next 4 years, we're going to give you a Scally. We just don't have one right now.
Right.
And in that day, you didn't sign a letter of intent if you walked on.
Right. Your preferred walk-on, you're on the list. You bypass all the BS of trying to apply, right? You don't have to worry about grades and test scores. They're getting you in the school as long as you're eligible.
Right.
Right.
And if it wasn't for ego, and I'm happy to say that, I would have gone to Central. I mean, but I couldn't sign a letter of intent. And that was the big deal, to me.
Right.
Looking back, it's ridiculous. I should have gone. I ended up there. We'll get there. But, I mean, yeah, it was ego. I needed to sign something. I needed to be somebody.
Yeah. You wanted to be in the newspaper.
Yeah.
Having a commitment.
Right.
Accepting a scholarship.
Yeah.
Right?
Nowadays, walk-ons are, almost included in, with the scholarship guys. They're on the same list.
Yeah.
They kind of hide the fact they're walk-ons.
People don't understand what it means to a young athlete for their parents too, right? Because you watched your parents sacrifice for so many years, taking you to practice, putting in the extra time, if you had a father that was a coach like you and I both did.
Yeah.
So you want to sign something that takes the burden of that academic bill off of their plate. It's kind of a moment of graciousness.
Yeah.
Not to say, okay, now I'm going to go walk on, and they said I might get the money. Jim Herman, the famous coordinator from University of Michigan, came in and said, Joe, he probably won't like me saying this, the way he phrased it. He said, Joe, somebody's going to knock up their girlfriend in the first semester and they're going to be going home and you're going to get the first scholarship. You come to the University of Michigan. That was his pitch, right? It was a pretty good pitch, right? Come pay your way for a semester. Yeah. Something's going to happen. Yeah. Somebody's going to lose their scholarship. Somebody's going to back out. You got the first scholarship that opens up. You hear that pitch and you say to yourself, I got my mom over here.
Yeah.
Who at this point, was basically from an income standpoint, a single mom.
Yeah.
I'm going to put another bill of that magnitude after all they've done to put me through St. Mary's, and you want to give that to your dad.
You did, yeah, and I did too. And I wanted that validation, I guess. So it was part ego, part validation, whatever you want to call it. I made the decision, and there's some other factors. Not only did Central offer that was great, but I grew up a Central Michigan fan. I mean, I grew up.
You got family connections up there.
Yeah, both parents are from Mount Pleasant. My weekends were spent going to Mount Pleasant, not going to Grandma and Grandpa's in Ann Arbor or Metro Detroit. We were going up north to Mount Pleasant.
Yeah, your up north was Chip country.
Yeah, right. Which
Chippewa
there's
Nation.
Another debate on what up north is, but yes. So those were factors, and then knowing that I could play with you, I could play with my brother, I could be a part of something great, and oh, by the way, I got a guy named Brian Van Gorder staring me in the eye, looking through me, saying, son, you're going to come here and be great.
Yeah, this is the same Brian Van Gorder who goes on to be Frank Broyles Award winner as assistant coach of the year at Georgia under Mark Richt with great teams. Notre Dame with Brian Kelly, bounces around the NFL. I mean, a legendary assistant coach.
Big time. And so that was a promise that was, you couldn't overlook that. And he looked you in the eye too. So I went to Wayne State. I signed my letter. Was a little bit disappointed because I had opportunities at Division I. I thought I was a Division I player. Let's just say that. Thought I could play there. So anyway, went to Wayne State, ended up being really excited to play with my brother, play with you. Wayne State had just turned the corner as a program a little bit, getting on the winning side. As he promised, I was able to get on the field as a freshman, albeit a special teamer and albeit a fourth or fifth wide receiver. Was able to do all those things, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, you're getting on the bus, man. You're going to away games. You're on the 50, man. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting. And by the way, they said they were giving me the most amount of money they'd ever given anybody. So that felt good. I'm sure he told you the same thing, and he probably did give you more money than he did anybody.
Well, their tuition went up. So you probably did get the most. A full ride for you was more money than a full ride when I went there. So you probably did get the most money.
And by the way, my parents were still paying a little bit of money. You know what I mean? In D2, as most people know, it's not usually a full ride for anybody.
Right.
There were some few exceptions. But anyway, ended up embracing it, being a part of the team. It was wonderful. I had a great experience my first year. Got on the field a little bit. And then after that, going into my second year, my sophomore year, we had a coaching change. Yeah. And you were on staff. I believe you stayed on as a grad assistant?
I stayed on as a grad assistant for just that one spring ball. Yeah, into the summer, and then left trying to bang my head against walls to continue a professional dream that didn't happen as I was cut on 3 continents. No, Canada's not a continent, is it? It's just another country. Cut in 3 countries. That's better.
That's impressive too, though. So anyways, I went into Brian Van Gorder's office after he said he was going to Central Florida to be the linebackers coach, and I was bawling like, dude, like you're one of the main reasons I came here, and promised all this. And he's like, listen, I got you all set. Dominic Lividotti's gonna take you home, and again, he could sell me on a lot of things. Right. He took me home all right. He took me back to Mount Pleasant. So sophomore year, I stayed and ended up playing more. I was like the rotational receiver, the third receiver in a 2 wide receiver set. Third wide receiver nowadays would get you, 45 catches a season. I tied for the team lead in touchdowns, which was 3. tied with my brother, got on the field, made an impact, and they moved me. They moved me to running back, position I hadn't played since I was 8 years old with the Walled Lake Braves.
Don't bring the Walled Lake. You just gave me PTSD. All right, I'm a Union Lake Hawk.
Oh, I
on
know.
the other side of town. Those red Walled Lake Braves.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear it. We take it all the way back. I can't believe that's true. We take it all the way back to Little League, and we take it back to Little League baseball too. You put a pin in that. I'll come back to the.
All right.
I'll come back
All
to
right.
the Pat Bush dynasty of Little League baseball. So you go to Central Michigan. You say enough of this. You go to Central Michigan.
Yeah. After the second year, that was enough. I saw enough of what was going on there. My brother was done. You were long gone. It was time to try to get back to where I thought I should have gone anyway. And I was accepting the fact if I did not make it, because I had to try out. I was not at that point, I was an unpreferred walk-on.
Right. You just.
I went as a gray shirt scholarship in writing next year to, dude, come on up, but you're going to have to make the team.
Yeah, we'll see what you can do.
We have 115 on the roster. You need to make that 115.
Yeah.
So I did. I ran a really good 40 time. I ran a 4.53 on grass, and I was big. I was fast.
Who were the studs at CMU at that time? Because for people, if you're picking this up in California, there'll be people that are listening to this all over the place. Central Michigan, not a small fry when you look at the draft picks.
Yeah. Antonio
Brown, who we're going to talk wide receivers today because you as a wide receiver, that's the subject matter expertise that you're going to bring to the GOAT greatest of all time segment, right? Antonio Brown's a big one, but they've had some big offensive linemen that were heavy-duty draft picks.
Yeah, absolutely. Scott, 6'9", Scott Rayberg, 7th-round draft pick of the New England Patriots at the time. The big receiver
J.J. Watt went there for a half a second
yes, he
before
did
he
as
went
a tight end.
Yeah,
yes.
And then for a year, and then went back to Wisconsin.
Yes, he did. No, they've had their pros now, and goes back to Gary Hogaboom, who kind of started the NFL run at quarterback with him. But when I was there, it was a guy that walked on as a freshman my year, Brian Shorman, who was given nothing, and he was from Iron Mountain. He was from the Upper Peninsula.
Nice.
And Brian Shorman
home
was
of Tom Izzo and Steve Mariucci.
That's right. Brian Shorman was a dog of a receiver. I mean, he was a 6'2" kid from the Upper Peninsula that nobody had ever heard of. This is before the recruiting circuit.
Yeah.
This kid hadn't been seen. He could have played in the Big Ten.
Yeah. Remind me of Janis. Remember Janis?
Very much
from
like
Tawas and then went to Saginaw Valley State.
That's a really good one. Yes.
Caught a few passes from Aaron Rodgers that hurt the Lions in certain circumstances. Yeah.
He did. So it was sort of Central was coming off maybe the year before they'd gone to the MAC championship, but this was kind of a Dick Flynn down year. This was sort of the between the Brian Kelly era and the Herb Duramity era was Dick Flynn, and Dick was great, a great man, and he's still with us, but there was a dip in the school at that point. So I crawl on. I ran a 40. They had to bring me on, and then they moved me. They're like, you're not playing receiver here.
Safety.
You're moving to safety.
Yeah.
You're 6'1", you run a 4.53, but you're 215 pounds. I'm like, I can play receiver. Like, I can really do it. I know.
Yeah.
No,
you always had the frame to go 210, 215, and that makes sense to me.
Yeah, but position-wise, you look at me, and so anyway, they moved me to free safety. They really moved me to get the hell on the scout team, and just, you had to sit out at that point.
Yeah.
D2 to D1.
That's right. Going up.
A little bit hypocritical.
Escalator.
You got to sit now. Now, how does that make any sense?
Yeah.
It really doesn't. But so I had to sit out. I was on the scout team. I did okay. I was a little bit, playing safety D1 scout team against. It was a bit intimidating, but I held my own.
And for those of you who don't forget the pandemic era of red shirts and free giveaway years, in this era, Chad gets on the field as a freshman in Division II, so he keeps his red shirt but can use his red shirt during his transfer year. Can't play, but he doesn't burn eligibility.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So week 6, Bowling Green week, I'm working a stalk block from a receiver, and my knee went sideways, and I sprained my LCL. Had to sit out the rest of the year, week 6 through 12. Came back the last week, whatever, didn't feel right. I never had an injury in football my entire career. And this wasn't a huge one, but I had to sit out. I had to have it heal. Come back, and they said, all right, look, man, you're 220. We're going to move you to outside linebacker. And so why don't you go see Coach LaFleur, Denny LaFleur, who's the outside linebacker coach.
Yeah.
He's the father of.
Yeah.
We think you got a chance at outside linebacker. I'm thinking, fuck, really?
Yeah, Matt LaFleur's father, who bounced around Saginaw Valley State and now has found a nice home for himself in Green Bay Packer country.
That's right. And his other son is OC, I think, for the San Francisco 49ers, or now has gone on.
It's a nice little tree.
It is. It's a real nice tree, both from Mount Pleasant. Really good stories. Denny was a great guy, too, but he had no use for me, really. So did all the early birds, got in Mount Pleasant 5 o'clock in the morning to 7 in the morning from December 15th to spring ball. Training, running. I mean, it was a grueling deal.
Trying to put 20 pounds on you.
Trying to put weight on. So then we get to spring ball, and I'm probably 5th on the depth chart at outside backer. No chance to really get on the field, at least at what I saw. And now I'm going against pulling guards and tackles and, linemen. I'm used to catching passes over the middle and having to, it just didn't feel right. You go from wide receiver to safety, cool. Now you're taking me inside the box, and it was, I consider myself a semi-tough guy, but this was just an unnatural thing. Like, I didn't know I'd never played linebacker in my life.
When you stop having fun and you're thinking out there, it gets really monotonous.
Exactly. So I hung it up. I took my sweatpants, that they gave me, and I just left practice one day, and I knew that was it. That was the end of the run for me.
Sweatpants, though. I mean, you walked out of $27 richer at least if they were nice.
They were CMU sweatpants, and I think I had to buy them. Even at that point in time.
You didn't even get the freebies.
I don't think so. It wasn't like that. Again, the walk-on deal. But anyway, so that was the football career. Had a good time going to Central and majoring in casino or whatever else I did there. But that was the end of my football run at that point as a receiver, and it was a sad thing to give up because mentally I was a receiver, physically I was a linebacker, and they're like, what's wrong?
Yeah. So, again, people who don't know Mount Pleasant, Michigan, beautiful town, great town, has a casino. The Saginaw Chippewa tribe host the Soaring Eagle, which
that's right,
often gets frequented by a co-ed here and there.
Oh, yeah.
Host some pretty nice live shows recently, too, up there.
They have. Alice Cooper was just up there recently. My dad had breakfast with him, took a picture of him, and it's like, Dad.
I heard he's a scratch golfer, Alice Cooper.
He is. He played that morning at the Polecat, actually, my dad was saying, and I heard the same thing. Yeah, nice. And a nice man, too. And
the Polecat reference, too. Dan Pole, probably the greatest Michigan-born golfer.
Yeah,
that's a GOATQuest sighting.
I think it is. He's definitely up there. Ryan Brem probably would, but yeah, I think you're right on that. He's in the Hall of Fame.
One of the most accomplished, and definitely the only one that has courses that he has designed. Right?
Yes,
Am I
he
right?
has.
I can't think of another.
I think he was involved.
I think he's got half a dozen around the country.
Bucks Run, and he's gone out. Yeah, I was an All-American at Arizona State. Yeah, no, great career, but. Yeah, so that was the end of the run for the playing days, and it was eventful, but
and then you end up in the booth.
Then I ended up in the booth
with a guy who's just one gin and tonic away from being off the air forever. And I'll give you the 2 thumbs. This guy, right? Just able to rein me in, enough. But boy, you've always had the pipes. You just have you got the voice, you've got the confidence. The one thing that I've always admired about you is there's an intrinsic quality, right? There's this kinetic energy that people can feel through the microphone that you're actually passionate about what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like you grit your teeth. You're one of those, like every time I walked into the booth, I said, I got to get my game up. I got to get my fever up because Bush is not screwing around. He is going to bring A game to this microphone, and that makes the chemistry happen.
Yeah, well, I think we're both passionate people, and I think it just comes through. Like, if you really love something, you enjoy it. And for me, it wasn't just football or the sport. It was the fact also, I mean, we fed off each other. But I think
AM 1200, right? Was it WDTK?
AM 1400, the
AM
Patriot.
1400, the Patriot.
Yeah, AM 1400,
Salem
the
Communications, the Patriot.
You
right?
got it.
We were the only program on the dial that Rush Limbaugh wasn't endorsing with two thumbs up and a bottle of Percocet.
That's good. But I will say, I would never, and I mean this, I would never have had an opportunity, I don't believe, if it was not for you. I was a PA announcer. I was at the end of the line in a corporate career at Lear. I retired after 6 years. The only guy to retire with no money in his account from Lear Corporation. A good job, really good job. And the Super Bowl was coming to Detroit. I was going through a divorce and single. And I thought, you know what? You got the Super Bowl coming. You're single now. Just go do something for yourself.
Yeah, do something you love.
Do something you love. And so
plug back in to get your hands into something that's outstanding for you.
Yeah.
Right? Because people say good job all the time. Drives me bananas. All right? It's only a good job if you're enjoying it. Right? Because a job is a job is a job is a job until you turn it into a vocation, right? A life system, right? When it fits in to everything that you're doing in a way that adds to, augments, facilitates, great. If it's a job and you're plugging away like the widget machine, I'll take a hard pass.
Yeah, no, and I've been truly lucky, and honestly, just really lucky to be able to do stuff that I enjoy and that it doesn't feel like work. And you were the big reason that happened. You were really the only reason, because I wasn't. I just woke up one day and I was like, I have to chase this, because I'm a broadcast fan. Like, I'm a play-by-play fan. I'm not just a sports fan. I grew up listening to radio. Like, I grew up listening to games on the West Coast as a 7-year-old.
Oh, yeah. The transistor under the bed at night.
It's a true story, though.
Yeah.
Like, every game. If I
Ernie Harwell, you kidding me? You had one of the greatest examples of broadcast history in your backyard.
That's right. And so I called Wayne State one day and said, hey, look, I'm one of yours. What do you have? Do you even have radio? Do you even have and they said, yeah, we do, but a guy doesn't.
I appreciate that. The fact that you didn't even know that I was on the air when you made this solicitation.
Joe, I didn't know what county I was in at that point in my life. I had no clue. All I knew is I was going to find a way to go to the Super Bowl, all the parties, try to scrounge up some money, and try to finalize this divorce. And so I called Wayne State, said, what do you have? They said, we have nothing. What do you do? Like, what's your experience? I said, well, I've listened to a lot of games. I said, well, why don't you try to, get some work in? So they called me one day and said, hey, we've got a women's basketball exhibition. Would you like to come do public address announcing for the game? And dude, you'd have thought I got asked to call a Tiger inning with Ernie Harwell. I was like, yeah.
Are you kidding?
It's $25. Really? You're going to pay me to do that? Hell yes.
$25? Where do I write the check?
Yeah.
You were paying them.
Right. I would have. So anyway, started doing PA announcing. It parlayed into getting some basketball games, some men's and women's, both regular season, not exhibition. And then the play-by-play guy, Matt Williamson, who you worked with, a good guy and a good talent, he happened to be leaving to go on his way somewhere.
Yeah, going out to Colorado. He's
going
still
to
out
Colorado.
there.
Yeah. I said, Joe, man, I want this gig. And he said, well, I'm going to go to bat for you. And that was that. And you did. You went to bat for me, and it was the best at bat.
Oh, we had a great time.
You've ever taken, because that was a life changer, not a game changer. It was a life changer for me. So I can't thank you enough for that.
But you have taken it to the next level. So now you've done games at Division I level. You've done games at the professional level with the G League, the Detroit Pistons, minor league program, affiliated program. You have you're an entrepreneur. You have your own broadcast company that's going around and doing a fantastic job, taking high school and prep sports to a professional level in the state of Michigan that it has never been before. I can say that unequivocally.
Thank you.
In listening to the stuff that you guys are doing, it's taking it to I mean, even with the Fox Bally's, what they were trying to do with high school sports, and they brought some good play-by-play people. I don't want to besmirch. So, but the color people that they brought in, and the chemistry, and the overall kind of experience of the broadcast, I think the prep far outdoes those other generations of this prep sports.
Thanks,
on radio.
Man. Yeah, appreciate it. No, we're having fun with it, and it's grown into something that I think we can run with it. It's been a good run, and it's been a lot of fun to bring this high school experience of games. Remember, I think we had one game a year when we were at Orchard Lake St. Mary's that was on LO11 local cable, and we had to wait. The game was played on, let's say, Friday or Saturday. We had to wait till like Sunday or Monday, and then they did the replay, and that was to me, I waited all year for that, even though I wasn't in it.
I think it was Country Day my year,
That's right.
and my senior year. And what was the guy? Was it Skip Rackles?
Frank, I got this for you now. I know this. You're close. Frank Plakas.
Plakas, that was it.
And Jim Shaffron.
It's gonna make us with Plakas. That was that was the framing device.
Yes. Yeah. And I thought those guys were the best thing ever. And I'm sure I wasn't the only person, but to me that was so cool. It always resonated that was something I waited for, and our teammates were so excited.
Plus, Plakas actually noted the fact in slow motion that I hit the ball on the pylon to win the game against Country Day, and they waved out. They didn't give me the touchdown. So Joe D'Angelo helped me out when it came to the all-state meeting, but I'm still sour about losing that game to Country Day on a touchdown that with replay would have been end of game.
Yeah, no, you guys had some great battles, and I think you had like 40 rushes for 200 yards in that game.
It was a rough one.
That was a rough one. So yeah, anyway, it's come full circle now that I'm trying to give back a little bit to the things that I wanted, and I know what I wanted and my teammates wanted as a player. And what would have been cool, a player of the game, or this and that. I just tried to add nothing.
Little segments, little features.
Yeah.
Personalize it.
Sure. Graphics and, quotes and all. Yeah, we're just trying to grow it. But anything.
And the prep, you're streaming audio and video.
Oh, yeah. It's a full 4-5 camera operation.
YouTube is where you pick. That's the vehicle that you pick it up on. The prep. So all you really have to do is Google the prep sports, and it's going to pop up.
Yeah. The Prep Sports Media, or theprepsports.com. And then the Prep Sports Media is our YouTube handle. And then we're on, all the 5 major social medias, the prep. But yeah, no. So that's been a lot of fun. It's been fun covering your son in hockey. It's kind of come full circle, you get to see and you as a parent. I haven't been on that side yet. I'm a parent, but my kids are very young. But now you're starting to see your kid, go through that, and your son and your daughter be part of it. But so it's been really cool to get excited about my friends' children. Like, that's really a cool thing to see it, and I'm starting to feel old about it too. But anyway, it's neat to bring that.
It is cool, right? I mean, you start to see guys who as kids performing at on the national stage now. Yeah. We are very lucky. We're going to be talking about wide receivers. We're very lucky. We kind of went to wide receiver high school at this point. When you look at the NFL, you got Allen Robinson, you got KJ Hamler, you got Von Jefferson. All these guys played at our high school at one point or another, all of them playing at the NFL at the same time.
Yeah, and even on your team, when you were a senior, I mean, we had you at running back, and then you had Dwayne Carter, went to Ohio State on one side.
Yeah, good friend of Eddie George and Joey Galloway. Good Nate Bush over here could, as I said, offered everywhere.
Yeah, so to have 2 wide receivers.
Gary Morris, a Detroit Tigers draft pick, slinging it to him at under center.
That's right. So, no, we were lucky to, you're right, see some wide receivers in our day as, be a key position. Even in an era when wide receiver was not as much the focus.
It was still just another part of the offense.
Yeah, it's like today's running back or H-back. Yeah. It's the second. Yeah, we'll get to them, but we're gonna
just another feature, not the feature like it is today. Before we get to wide receivers, though, you mentioned, and I know this is true of you, that you've been a real student of the art of broadcasting. let's talk, top 5, top 10. Who are your all-time favorite broadcasters, the guys behind the mic that painted the picture?
Yeah, well, it's a very clear number one, Ernie Harwell. And I'm biased, of course, and I'm sure you are too. But growing up listening to him, I really have no choice. But, I mean, that guy was my idol.
Yeah.
Still is. Not just as a broadcaster, but as a person. And then Vin Scully is probably number 2.
Another great baseball, 60-something years
in
one career with the L.A. Dodgers, broadcasting their games, the voice of the Dodgers. I mean,
that's right. Took it from Brooklyn out to L.A., did the whole circuit with them. And another great man, just I'm not a real big storyteller. I know you're a good storyteller. I'm not. I don't think I really am. But Vin Scully is like the best storyteller I've ever heard of. And in a sport like baseball, you can get away with storytelling, and that's it. Like, you can't, soccer maybe, but who's calling soccer on radio? But there's no other sport that you can have somebody tell a full story in mid-sentence and mid-game and be okay with it. Like, you might miss 6, 7 pitches, you might miss a couple outs, but you'll wait for that story with Vin Scully when he's going to tell you, about the Atlanta Crackers when he visited there in 1962. And Sandy Koufax, curveball. Back on point, some of the more recent modern-day guys that I really like. I like Al Michaels. He's probably my 3rd. Big Al Michaels guy. I think he's just...
Al Michaels is probably my GOAT.
Is
just
he?
From an overall... because baseball is a great sport to see the best broadcasting in for the reason that you just mentioned. The storytelling, the pace of it. Mm-hmm. It gives the broadcaster so much room to work. Mm-hmm. But I was never as much a baseball fan, the sport itself,
that's fair,
as I was football and and hockey. And Al Michaels has meant so much to football. Yeah. And then, of course, he's got the ultimate call in the history of calls in the Miracle on Ice with the United States Olympic team in 1980.
Quite versatile, a guy that can do a lot. I got to think, I guess, a little bit deeper on it because there's so many good guys. I think more modern day. I actually think Joe Buck is better than most people think he is. I know he gets dogged
a
lot.
Hate. There's a lot of love-hate for him.
Yeah. I think he is like the technical guy, though, that like he's TV guy. And there's a difference. There's a radio specialty and there's a TV. And the ones that can do both are extremely talented in my eyes because it's not the same call.
Oh, yeah. And Middle America will vote for his father, Jack Buck, and Harry Carey.
No doubt. No
Jack
doubt.
Buck and Harry Carey talk because, again, baseball was the American pastime for all of our grandparents' generation, right? Our great-grandparents. It wasn't until our fathers when the Super Bowl era of football really took over. And then, of course, the NBA basketball has even started to encroach on the Super Bowl's turf.
Yep, no doubt. To follow that up, I mean, locally, you can't help but, we grew up in an era where we saw more local than most folks today would see more regional and worldwide because of the web. I'm a big George Blaha fan.
Yeah.
Just because of the experiences he's brought to me as a child. The Pistons world titles.
Voice of the Detroit Pistons. He was also, just before your time, he was the voice of Wayne State football.
That's right.
Before he got the Michigan State job as the voice of Michigan State football, he was the voice of Wayne State football. So I have Blaha calling my games on tape, which is phenomenal.
That is amazing.
Yeah, he interviewed me several times. Nothing but a gentleman. You get nothing but compliments from me about George Blaha.
Wow. That's a big time one. And then, lastly, again, and this is more local flavor because these are guys I've heard more of. And yes, I appreciate the Keith Jacksons. I appreciate the Mike Tiricos.
Pat Summerall.
Pat Summerall's another guy that probably doesn't get enough credit. He was a guy that, a former player. First of all, there's not a lot of former players that are play-by-play guys.
Yeah.
And as a former player, I gravitate to guys that played the game at play-by-play.
Yeah.
You don't need that, and you don't necessarily need to be a guy that played the game at color, but I just think it's a cool feature. Maybe it's a bit selfish, but I admire, I guess, because there's not many of them.
Sure.
These guys are all, studied broadcasting at Syracuse, and they, last game was in Little League in 8th grade they competed in.
I'm jumping on your list here, but I think you get the same thing. We were talking, I told you that I had the godfather of St. Cecilia, Sam Washington, in here, and we were talking about Gus Johnson. Gus Johnson went to St. Cecilia, was an athlete, right? Yeah. But was small in stature, right? So he knew my athletic career might only take me so far, but boy, does he have a sparkling tone behind the mic. Gus Johnson's kind of doing it all right now.
He is. Gus is kind of his own guy. He's different. I respect that. He's not a guy that my ear gravitates to a lot. I'll say that. I'm not, trying to step on your opinions, but I respect the fact he's from Detroit. I respect the fact he's emotional. He can contain his emotion enough where he's not screaming over a call. That's really hard to do. Yeah. Like, and even if he screams a little bit, it's okay. He's Gus Johnson. But it's really hard, and you know this even on color. Like, you want the call to play out. You want it to be a pure call so your viewer or listener can absorb it. It's hard, especially early in my career, like with you, not with you, but just early on, getting too excited. He kind of has perfected containing his emotions, yet, showing those emotions and getting it clearly out to his audience. But no, I think Gus is very talented.
And you mentioned Tirico too. He's another guy, lives in Ann Arbor. Another
Tirico,
another local
underrated
guy.
I think Tirico is so underrated. And I know he gets a lot of acts and he's in everything, but Tirico's just, he's went to the Newhouse School of Broadcasting, yes, but he knows multiple sports, and he's a perfectionist at what he does. Yeah. His timing is perfect in everything. I really like Mike Tirico. The last guy that I'll mention, though, is the Lions' former play-by-play guy on radio, and a guy I've gotten the opportunity to work with. And it's kind of a surreal moment. Mark Champion, who is the former play-by-play radio guy for the Lions during the Barry Sanders era.
Right.
And now is the longtime radio voice of the Pistons. And when Blaha flipped to TV, Champion went to radio. I just love Champion's tones. I like his, he's kind of a dry at times, but he still gets his point across.
We've been blessed in Detroit.
Oh, man. Have we ever? We haven't even talked hockey.
Mickey Redmond's still doing it.
Still doing it. Sid Abel, Bruce Martin. What a great team there.
Amazing.
So I know we've really been blessed, and I think you're right. The Midwest, it was so important to have good broadcasters and all these power watt stations.
We used to get Toronto, too. So you used to get the CBC. Remember, we used to get Don Cherry.
That's right.
Doing Hockey Night in Canada.
That's right. McLean.
Foster Hewitt was my grandfather's guy, right? We're getting the Toronto broadcasts out of the CBC. And then, you got Doc Emmerich, right, who's just one of the legendary voices of our time doing hockey. A lyricist
at the full a Michigander, right. Yeah. He's a guy people forget about. That guy is a linguistic genius. He really is. Yeah. I've never heard a guy put words together that you're like, wow.
And you have to do it so fast in hockey.
Right.
Because the puck, it isn't just that the puck moves with such speed. It's that it changes possession multiple times in one skirmish.
That's right.
Right? So,
that's right.
Whereas in football, a turnover is a big deal. A turnover in hockey might only last a fraction of a second, and it's back on the other person's stick, going the other direction.
Yep, no doubt. And another guy that's kind of a wild card here, Mark Johnson. He's the Colorado Buffaloes voice. And if you've never heard Mark Johnson, which most people probably haven't, it's just a booming voice that's impressive. And again, he has the right alliteration. He has the right timing. It's just fun to listen to him. There's guys that I appreciate at every level. There's Division III guys that are so good.
Where do you come out on Jim Nantz?
Oh, I really like Jim Nantz. He's
a bit of a poet.
He is a poet. He's another guy that has great voice, and he also sets his partners up really well. He works well with people.
He can do so many sports. Being able to go from golf,
dude,
to the impact collision sports. Two totally different tones. Two totally different atmospheric qualities, and Nantz seems to be able to. There's a few guys who seem to be able to do it all in that regard.
That's a great call. I really do like Jim Nantz. Who are some other guys that I might have missed or that you think that add to that list?
Even though it was my worst sport, I loved watching college basketball.
Yeah.
It was probably my favorite thing to watch, right? Especially the NCAA tournament, but the Big Ten. And remember, we used to pick up the Big East. The Big East was on like Pass or on TV or one of those subscription services that you could get. So we would get all the Big East games. We would get all the Big Ten games. So you got guys like Bill Rafferty, right? Of course, Dick Vitale was at U of D. Then he goes to the Pistons. So then when he takes over at ESPN, sure, some people will say he's over the top, but he's such a part of the personality of the game that was great stuff. Al McGuire, another early basketball voice.
Yeah.
You know, now you got guys like Kevin Harlan. Of course, Gus Johnson is still doing it at a really high level. But those would be, you know, those guys. Billy Packer.
Yeah,
I loved listening to Billy Packer.
Well, that was college basketball.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've kind of talked about play-by-play guys. I think the color guys deserve their own segment too. And, you know, those are two different skills that make a broadcast team.
Yeah, the synergy.
The synergy of it. One guy I left off and I thought of when you were talking about college basketball and even NBA basketball is Dick Stockton.
Oh, yeah, Dick Stockton.
Yeah.
When you said the word Dick, I thought for sure it was going to be Enberg. Dick Enberg.
Oh, my
a
gosh.
CMU grad.
Oh, how could I leave him off?
Right? I mean, Dick Enberg was another guy who could do it all. Olympic Games, Jim McKay. Jim McKay and Dick Enberg, right? They're out there for the Olympic Games. They're in every major professional sport back when it was 3 channels, and that's all you got on the dial.
Yeah, San Diego Padres voice for many, many years.
Those guys were everywhere and doing it at a very high level.
No doubt, man. Oh, it's just we could go on for days, but that's
as long as we don't mention Brent Musburger, I'm fine.
You know what? I really, really, really like Brent Musburger. And it's a love-or-hate thing. I love Brent Musburger, and I'm sorry I left him off the list. Why? What's your story with Brent? What is it?
I've been around professional sports long enough now to, you know, without name dropping and the rest of it, you have experiences, you meet people have an air about them. You know, not to mention I've heard a really funny story about him getting into it with a grad student at Frazier's in Ann Arbor and getting the floor wiped up with himself. He got way out ahead over his skis.
Oh boy!
Outkicked his coverage and ended up in a ball on the ground. Allegedly, Musburger to me rubbed me the wrong way.
Okay,
but you know, I mean, even a guy, you know, like I didn't have great local hero, Dearborn Divine Child, Detroit Lions, Gary Danielson. A lot of people say the same thing about Gary Danielson. You know,
I'm with you on that.
I love Tom Paciorek. I got a chance to really
Wimpy.
I got a chance to hang out with Tom Paciorek when his nephew was going to St. Mary's. When I was the dean in residence there for a short time, I got a chance to hang out with him in my office. Thought he was a super good guy. Enberg is one that I got a chance to meet. Wow, I mean, what a personality!
Yeah,
guy could just, I mean, talking like you and I are talking, just at a bar. Right?
Yeah.
Same level of eloquence.
Yeah.
Right? Like the guy didn't turn it off. Like he was just super polished, walking around. That was just his thing.
Yeah.
I don't have the same vibe for. I like Troy Aikman, but I don't have the same affinity for Troy Aikman. Same thing with Tony Romo. Romo is really doing it at a high level right now. I know that the insights that he brings to the game are extra special, but I'm not a guy who loves Tony Romo.
Yeah, I tell you what, and I hear that a lot. And what I'm impressed with is the guy walked out of the stadium and walked into the booth 3-4 months later. And yeah, he wasn't polished, and yeah, he probably was a little too smart for most people, including me, you know, trying to be a little too predictable and smart and all those things. And that can be annoying at times. But I thought it was impressive. I think it's impressive, and you can relate to this. Anybody who can walk into a booth, like people think anybody can just walk in and do color, hosting, podcast, whatever.
Tony Romo has interesting things to say.
He does.
He absolutely does. And he can pick apart the coverages on the field and dumb it down to people who may not have all of that expertise.
Yeah.
In a much better way than I thought he was going to be able to.
Right.
We'll see if Tom Brady can do the same. He's already the highest paid broadcaster before he's ever called a game. So we'll see if Tom Brady can do the same thing.
We know he looks the part. We'll see what the rest brings.
We mentioned Harry Carey. We didn't mention Howard Cosell. A little bit.
Out of my era, and I'm not trying to. You're 3 years older than me, so it's not like it's a big gap. But Howard, I don't have a good feel for him one way or the other. It just wasn't my era, and I don't have a lot of tape on him.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to be fair and just say I'm going to rely on you and
Yeah.
punt.
Howard Cosell was another great character. Chick Hearn, that Lakers announcer, he's another one that.
Can we agree on this? Chick Hearn, the best part of Fletch is Chick Hearn, and Fletch is the best movie ever made.
Yeah, it's one of the greats.
The best part is Chick Hearn is in Fletch, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
6'5", 6'9".
Jim McKay has been and done these little things. Kurt Gowdy is another one, longtime Boston Red Sox guy who got featured in a lot of things. We haven't mentioned, because we're an equal opportunity show here, let's make sure we mention Hannah Storm, Bonnie Bernstein, Doris Burke,
Doris
Leslie
Burke.
Visser.
Well, Dick Stockton's wife, Leslie Visser. I think Doris Burke is really the lead color analyst in the NBA on TV.
She's great.
I think she's better than everybody else in color, like textbook color commentary. She's relatable. She has a good voice.
I think the same thing about Hannah Storm behind the desk.
Yes.
I'd rather listen to her than half of the guys that they throw up there.
She's great. And, I will say it's taken me a little bit to get used to a female voice on play-by-play. I mean, it's
a male-dominated series of sports.
Yeah.
You've grown up your whole life
Right.
listening to men talk about it. So I think that makes it even more remarkable.
It is.
That these women have broken through and proven themselves to, the testosterone-driven world that you and I live in.
It is, and it's not a knowledge thing. Look, the ear likes what the ear likes. It is what it is, and I really like Doris Burke.
Yeah.
I really like what she has to say. I like how she says it. She's just outstanding. But some of the play-by-play, I'm still getting used to it. I'm open to it. It's not a male-female thing. It's just the ear likes what the ear likes.
Yeah. I'd like to see Bonnie Bernstein get back.
She's the best.
I thought she was fantastic.
She's the best.
I got a chance to meet her down at South by Southwest.
Yeah.
She's a class act. Still looks like she could walk out and also be the primetime presentation.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a few women who I think
Sure.
are continue to flourish, and that opens the doors for more.
Yeah, and I'm all about that. I think that's great. I'm all about it. I'm an equal opportunist there. And it's early. It's early in the game. They haven't gotten an opportunity, so I think it's wonderful. It's balancing out a little bit more there.
Are you willing to dismiss the bite marks and put Marv Albert somewhere on the list?
Yes, yes. I like pennies. Yes. Sorry. I think Marv's okay. He's pretty good. I mean,
his brother Kenny's been doing a ton of hockey.
Kenny's outstanding.
Yeah,
I think Kenny
as
Albert's
professional as can be.
outstanding. No, he's really good. There's some, and there's also guys that I think are, I'm not going to be negative Nancy here, but there's guys that have West Coast or East Coast ties where these networks reign and where they come from, these national networks. And look, if you're on the East Coast or West Coast, you're getting more exposure. You're going to get a better opportunity. Some of these guys that have come in from there, and I'm not going to name names, there's some guys in those spots that just because they maybe were in those big markets, they resonate a little bit more with certain people. And I don't know. I have some issues with some of the folks in the spots because of how they got there.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, I don't want to turn it into a negative, but
you made a very good point, and that is that there's a strong separation between the position of play-by-play and the position of color analyst.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to stick with my Al Michaels. I just think that from a longevity, personality, signature voice, never misses a beat, never misses a chance to play the right timing on the right joke. Al Michaels is my guy. But on the color side,
mm-hmm.
and this might be just before your time. Again, there isn't a big spread of age between us, so you'll remember the guy's name, but I don't know that you maybe had a chance to hear him whip up a story on Monday Night Football. Don Meredith on Monday Night Football.
Dandy Don,
who could chuck and duck for the Dallas Cowboys as a player. They put him in the booth. Of course, he played into this kind of Harry Carey stereotype of being able to have a few cocktails before the engagement and still kind of slide in like Dean Martin into the booth.
Yeah.
But he did it so well.
I've heard, and he's got the Southern accent to go with it. The easy personality.
Yeah, just enough Texas.
Yeah. No, I've heard a little bit of him, and I do have great respect for him, and I have great respect for anybody who can fit into a 3-man booth, which is one of the hardest things to do.
And make your presence. We had a very highly touted professional stand-up comedian try to fit into that booth with Dennis Miller, and it went up in flames.
Yep. It's hard to make your presence and without being overbearing or trying to immerse yourself in a 3-man booth. But yeah, Don Meredith and Howard Cosell and who's the third?
Oh, Al Michaels. Who'd be your number one color analyst? Who's the GOAT?
Can we like go by sport or
sure?
Baseball, lead color analyst, and I know I'm a little biased here. Well, there's 2 of them. I have a TV one and I have a radio one. TV, it's Joe Morgan.
Yeah, me too.
Hands down.
He's my number one for baseball.
Hands down. Nobody better than Joe Morgan as a color commentator. Just was perfect. With John Miller, who probably deserves some kudos as well.
Sure.
I really like the former Baltimore Oriole play-by-play guy. And then
I'll throw Garagiola in there too as kind of a feature guy doing the weekend stuff.
Saturday afternoon baseball. Yeah, Garagiola, whose son has gone on to do some good things too in Detroit. On radio, it's Paul Carey. There's no better voice ever in broadcasting, in my opinion. The best voice ever. It was the voice of God.
He's the Rodney Dangerfield of regional broadcasting.
Really is.
Yeah.
I mean, Paul Carey from Mount Pleasant, another Mount Pleasant and Central Michigan guy. I mean, just pipes like, who cares what he said?
Yeah.
I don't even know what he said.
Yeah.
But him and Ernie together, I mean, it's like, Texas tea with an extra scoop of sugar. Just unbelievable. But there's probably more guys. What are your thoughts? So that's baseball. Who's your baseball color guy?
Joe Morgan. You nailed it right off the bat. I mean, the professionalism and the style, right? You can't get too amped up in baseball because you can't sustain it over that amount of time. Where Joe Morgan just had the polish. He piped up when he needed to. Obviously, football, I mentioned Don Meredith. My 1A would be John Madden.
Oh, yeah.
He
transcended football, national football.
Yeah, dude, he invented a mammal, the turducken. You can't not be on you can't invent a mammal and not make it on the list of the GOATs.
I love it. One more guy to jump back on in baseball, Steve Stone. I think Steve Stone's fabulous. And when he worked with Harry Carey, on Cubs and then cross town with the White Sox. Steve Stone, anybody who can hang with Harry and just let him do his thing. Yeah, those are all great folks, man. Such a great list of color guys.
Yeah, I love that stuff. All right, so we're going to jump ship over to getting these wide receivers toned in. We got just under 30 minutes to bring this list home. The evolution of the position. Mm-hmm. Okay, the wide receiver position has changed dramatically. Right, so this is we already have this problem when we're talking about the greatest of all time in judging their eras and the context of their eras that allowed them to put up statistics, right? Which is where the whole you can't make it a stats-based argument only comes into play, right? The kinds of teams they played for, what was demanded out of them by their coach and their system at any given time. But you also can't ignore the statistics because it's an empirical judgment factor.
That's right.
We have to measure that in these wide receivers. You got wide receivers that were, and we can have another episode where we talk about the greatest of all time in college. I was wowed when I went through my research on this of how many of the greatest wide receivers in college football history barely touched the radar in the NFL.
Isn't that something?
Barely got on the field.
Were there certain eras that you noticed got more neglected than others, or was it kind of consistent throughout, like, and we'll say 80s or 90s, because
it comes down to teams, really.
Yeah.
You had teams that had systems in college that helped guys produce ridiculous numbers. And then it's the chicken or the egg. They start going to those colleges, right?
Yep.
Because the system is going to give them the opportunity. So then the talent starts to increase.
That's right.
So the June Jones Hawaii teams with Colt Brennan, and then was it Tim Chang or
Timmy Chang?
Timmy Chang. You got the Nevada teams, the Nevada Reno teams, University of Nevada, who were throwing the ball all over the place.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of these Oklahoma State. Gundy has been chucking and ducking for a long time there, so they've produced. So there's certain programs where they've just got ridiculous numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter. You go back, Wyoming.
I was just going to say that.
The University of Wyoming
Yeah.
has like 3 of the pure numbers.
Yeah.
3 of the greatest receivers in college football history.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was an era of in Laramie where it was all like and I don't understand it.
Well, you remember Ryan Yarborough because he got some. Yarborough got some run. Harris, what was it? Marcus Harris, Markeel Harris. He came right after Yarborough. He, by the way, is the only Biletnikoff winner to not play in the NFL.
Is that right?
That's what I was like. Like guys didn't even play. Wow. Like they were on the practice squad and didn't even get on the field. Yeah. Right. We mentioned Janis, who got some run with Saginaw Valley State, who got some run with the Green Bay Packers. Western Michigan.
Yeah.
Western Michigan. Corey Davis, all-time leading receiver in several categories.
Yeah.
Right? Greg Jennings was one of the all-time leading receivers before Corey Davis.
That's right.
Right? And there were others before there. Jordan, there was another big Mac, Jordan Waite or Jordan, the name escapes me.
Yeah.
But Western Michigan has got like 3 of the all-time greats when you look at the statistical analysis of the position.
That Al Moldy offense.
Yeah. I mean, Marshall. Now, of course, we're going to talk about one of the guys who came out of Marshall, but Marshall's another one that has produced a lot more than you got mossed. They've had a bunch of receivers that have come out of Marshall with sick numbers.
They have, and I'll add running backs to that too. Calling play-by-play for them now on TV, you get a chance to go back and see. I work with Doug Chapman.
Yeah.
It's really, you're right. The running backs are big, and the receivers. They've had some guys that have gone on and done some big things. I think Marshall's really a sleeper with NFL talent throughout. But yeah.
So I'll throw one at you for college football
Sure.
just because people know Corey Davis, right? Corey Davis had a nice NFL career, was statistically probably the best college football wide receiver. But do you remember Trevor Inslee of Nevada?
I do, but just vaguely, not much.
5,000 receiving yards.
Oh, you're kidding. I wouldn't have guessed that.
He had 5,000 receiving yards at Nevada. Now, he only had a cup of coffee in the NFL. He caught his only touchdown pass in the NFL from Peyton Manning. So that's a nice little feather in your cap. But Trevor Inslee had 5,000 receiving yards. A lot of people throw Ryan Broyles on the list because Broyles played for all those great quarterbacks at Oklahoma and had so many catches, so many yards over a starter for 4 years. So it's tough to weight these guys who were 4-year starters and got this huge statistical bump. Yep. Interesting, though, as we get into this debate, because I want to hear who your favorites were. Mm-hmm. Stop monopolizing the microphone.
No, it's good.
It's going to really change now with the transfer portal because the guy who would have been a breakout redshirt freshman sophomore who was about to get their chance and become the guy or the one or the two at a passing school. Yeah. Now you got a fifth-year senior's coming in,
right,
from Purdue,
right,
and that guy's taking your reps, taking your catches. Yeah. So you're not. I don't think you're going to see the 4-year wide receivers anymore because of the transfer portal.
It's a great point. Yeah, the stats are really going to start to change, and it's going to be hard for receivers to get on the field early on in their careers because who's going to take them? Like a young receiver isn't going to find the field.
Didn't Grand Valley State just lose 2 to Division I teams?
I think so.
In the portal?
Yeah, I mean everybody. It's just a factory of everybody's getting to the next level. Everybody's building their resume so they can upgrade. It's just an upgrade thing. It's crazy.
Give me your top 3 college receivers before we jump into the pros, and they can be guys who were outstanding in the pros.
Michael Irvin is definitely one of them.
The Convicts.
Yeah, Miami was one of those. You talk about programs that praised receivers and bred receivers and whatnot. Irvin's definitely up there, one of my top in college. Oh, boy. And it's a hard debate. It's a really hard debate. But I believe some of the best receivers have come from the South and have been guys. There's a guy that stands out, and it's Williams from Texas.
Oh, yeah, Roy Williams.
Roy Williams was, and I know he had his thing here, but Roy Williams in college as a receiver was just in an era where that big receiver, he sort of, and Irvin was a part of it, but this guy was different. I think Roy Williams has to be in that top 3.
I put Roy Williams right there with Charles Rogers from Michigan State, guys who
Rogers,
were phenomenal Biletnikoff guys, but couldn't do it at the professional level, usually because of the vices that presented themselves, the temptation that presented itself.
What is it about the receiver position in these vices?
Well, it's the prime time. They've almost, sadly, it's almost become a stereotype that some of them want to live into or think they have to live into. The gold chains and the designer sunglasses and the hot shot sweatsuit, jumpsuit, getting out of their limousine. It's sad because you've also got some guys who are just straight getting it done, meat and potatoes. And we're going to get to one of them who was also fantastic at the University of Pittsburgh, and his name is Larry Fitzgerald. Talk about a meat and potatoes cerebral receiver and never seemed to be sucked into that world.
And I think the fact his father was a coach, his father was a great mentor in life for him, and I think he was raised right, and I'm not saying the other guys weren't, but he lived a very strict life. It was discipline and a quiet demeanor, not an ego guy. My last 3, and I'll pass the torch to you. I want to hear yours. Desmond Howard. Desmond Howard is probably my 3rd guy, and I'm sure I'm missing a ton. But I'm a little biased. Go Blue, but
plus with the return man pieces of the puzzle there. I mean, that's the extra, right? If it's a tie between others, Desmond gets the nod because he could take any kick, punt, or kickoff to the house at any moment.
Yep. What about you? Who are some of your college guys that you really admire?
My sleeper would be Troy Edwards from Louisiana Tech, who was just a magician out there. I mean, Jesus. I mean, of course, they threw the ball to him all the time. And
Is that the Hal Mummy offense?
Yeah, engineered for Troy Edwards.
Yeah.
I would put Troy Edwards on my real tight board of guys who didn't maybe pan out at the NFL level, but were top of the list from the eye test for me at the collegiate level. I loved in college, it broke my heart to have him playing against me, but Crabtree, Michael Crabtree was at Oklahoma State. I mean, Oklahoma State's got a bunch of them, Rashawn Woods, James Washington, right? I mean, they just line them up at Oklahoma State. They just seem to come out anywhere. Yeah. Texas Tech. Crabtree was Texas Tech.
That's right. The run and gun offense or the Red Raider offense.
The Red Raider offense again against my Oklahoma Sooners, who I root for.
Yeah.
Sadly, this past season. But watching Crabtree go against you and the things that he could do as a freshman. Remember, he had that year, that 1,400-yard season as a freshman.
Yeah.
Right, coming right out of high school, making that kind of an impact. That was really impressive to me.
Sure.
I like your Roy Williams pick. There's some guys who in college, like Joey Galloway to me. I know he doesn't get the same kind of run that some of the other pros from Ohio State get, but in college, it seemed like Joey Galloway was always open. It was like you just hated it. You almost hated for it to be 3rd and long.
Yeah.
Because you knew that Joey Galloway was going to be in the slot making something happen.
Yeah, it was like a Golden Tate plus. It's like a
yeah.
That's a good call. One guy locally that I really admire as well is Michael Westbrook.
Yeah.
A guy that did big things at Colorado. Of course, everybody remembers the catch.
Sure.
In his home state back here.
From Cordell Stewart.
I'll never forget where we were, and I was with you.
You know that Michael Westbrook was at my bachelor party, right?
I don't doubt that. I did not know that. And I think we need to understand some stories.
So Michael Westbrook went to Chadsey.
Oh, yeah.
And he's a Detroit boy, went to Colorado in the McCartney era when all of the great talent from Detroit went to Colorado. Sam Rogers, Len Renfro, Marcus Relford.
You know why, right?
Well, I don't know. You can tell me.
Versace.
Laundry money, right? They were getting
no.
There was something in the laundry?
Well, the tie is Versace.
Wasn't Tony Versace?
Tony Versace.
Yeah.
Tony Versace.
He was friends with McCartney from when McCartney had coached in the Catholic League.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those guys, when Chadsey in the summertime, Mark Friday, who was our quarterback at Wayne State, was also Chadsey's quarterback. So we ran a lot of 7-on-7. I know 7-on-7 has become a game unto itself now. Now it's its own sport. 7-on-7 is like what they do all summer long now.
Right.
7-on-7 was rare in our era.
Yeah.
Right. You had to put it together.
It was like Skelly, you know.
So the fact that we had one going on at Wayne State in the summer was a big deal. It wasn't going on everywhere. Right. So it drew the best talent. They all came. Jerome Bettis from Detroit Mackenzie, right? Guys showed up for our 7-on-7.
Yeah.
And Michael Westbrook was one of them. So he came. We got a chance to hang out. Obviously, our quarterback being Mark, we had some social settings where we got a chance to hang out. Then Michael Westbrook got into mixed martial arts in a big way with our good friend James Lee, who trained him and is training guys all over the world now. James was light heavyweight champion and King of the Cage. Light heavyweight champion, beat Travis Wolf at Pride before Pride merged with the UFC. So James has kind of become his own little thing. Yeah. Well, James and Michael decided to come up for my bachelor party. And, of course, the rest of it will remain censored.
Could you imagine those two guys, like, first of all, I would walk into anywhere and feel secure in the most insecure environments that were physically threatened, whatever. Like if you got James Lee, Michael Westbrook, I mean, I'll throw you in there. Nobody's going to mess with you.
Michael Westbrook, great wide receiver, takes a lot of heat during the Redskins era when now the Commanders, the Washington football team, takes a lot of heat for what happened with Stephen Davis.
Sure.
The unfortunate incident where they got into it on the practice field and cameras captured it, and he served a decent suspension and pretty much ended his career for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. You don't assault people.
Sure.
But it's really odd to me because when you meet Michael Westbrook, boy, a nicer guy. I know people say this all the time when bad things happen.
I've heard the same thing.
But he's intellectual. He's articulate.
Right.
He's not a guy that you would see flying off the handle.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because he focused it into martial arts, and that's become his channel for managing him. Kudos to him for finding something that is more productive than...
Right. And you know what? We all have bad days. Who knows? Like we all have demons, we all have anger, and we all have bad days. And sometimes when those things all come together, we make bad decisions.
Yeah.
I know I've done a lot of them, but I'm not an NFL football player, and who knows what Steven did to him, right?
Yeah, we don't know. We
don't know.
We have none of the
who
background.
Knows? Maybe it was warranted.
Yeah, we have none of the background there. So that takes us into our list.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and we've got to get down to business here in the final 15 minutes. We've talked about a lot of wide receivers already, the tantalizing side of this. But because of the segue of guys who may have had difficulty and have figured out a way to navigate through it, let's throw 3 guys up there. Let's throw 4 guys up there at the bottom of the top 10, or at least maybe the second half of the top 10. Maybe not. You might tell me, no, Joe, from a talent perspective, there's 3 guys for sure: Marvin Harrison, Terrell Owens, and Michael Irvin, who got into some trouble, had some issues throughout their careers. From a talent perspective and from a statistical perspective, it's hard to argue with Michael Irvin, Marvin Harrison, and Terrell Owens as being modern era. Like, the position of wide receiver was established by these 3 guys.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think they all offer a little bit different things. Harrison being the possession receiver of them, but could also do so many things. Owens was the game breaker. Irvin was the game breaker and the possession guy.
Third down.
He's
Michael
clutch.
Irvin.
Just
Mr.
clutch.
Third down.
Everything. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
2 guys who I want on the field in the history of my lifetime on third down. Michael Irvin on one side of the field and Charlie Joyner on the other side of the field, because Dan Fouts on 3rd and 10 is lethal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Charlie Joyner was the all-time leading receiver when I was a kid.
Yeah.
He broke the record, became the all-time leading receiver. And then, of course, Steve Largent came behind him and became the all-time leading receiver after him. So in my lifetime, I watched Largent and Joyner as kind of the preeminent. And then, of course, who comes up behind them? The name who we will not name yet from the San Francisco 49ers, who, just statistically, you can't debate it. Let's talk about those 3 and how would you order those 3?
I think you got to put Owens top of that list. I think Owens just had that extra gear that the others didn't have. And I think Irvin goes second, and I think Harrison goes below that. And I don't know if that's fair because Harrison's so good. But
I'm going to bring you two older guys now,
Yeah.
and you tell me if you slot them in above this group or below this group. This is how we're going to attack this. Art Monk, 3 Super Bowls from 3 different quarterbacks. A receiver to get the magic with 3 different quarterbacks for 3 Super Bowl championship teams. And Chris Carter.
oh man, Chris Carter was so good, and he didn't have the physical tools I feel that any of these guys have. He just had
Always open.
always open.
Consummate route runner. Him and Steve Largent, probably the best route runners I've ever seen.
That's what it comes down to. Yeah.
I'll throw Larry Fitzgerald in that mix, too,
Okay.
of route running
Yeah.
excellence.
Man, that's a tough one. Can you say that one again, those 3 guys or 2?
Art Monk, Chris Carter, and Larry Fitzgerald. Route running machines.
Right. Gosh, and it's hard because of the eras, right? I mean, Monk and I don't know how he would have played in today's game.
He was big, and he could run.
Yeah, God, he
He's
was
kind of
good.
prototypical.
He was.
People don't mention him in the same breath as Michael Irvin, but he was Michael Irvin before Michael Irvin.
He was. And that was a Washington Redskin offense that was also predicated on, pounding Riggins.
The Hogs.
The Hogs.
The offensive line, 3
And
yards in a cloud of dust.
Right. Man, that's hard. I mean, I would go Fitzgerald, Monk, probably Carter.
Carter at the bottom.
Yeah, and that's
Okay.
hard because all he does is score touchdowns and convert third downs.
Before I go modern on you, I'm going to go old school.
Yeah.
All right. So I know you've watched these guys on tape, right? You've seen, we've all been the NFL films guys.
Yeah.
So we got to look old school at Lance Allworth, Raymond Berry, the Colts great, who many people say was truly the first wide receiver who became only a wide receiver, right? Not an end that was part of the blocking scheme. Don Hudson, the great Packer, and Charlie Joyner, who I've already mentioned from the Chargers. How would you rank them?
I'd go Barry, Hudson, or Allworth. I don't know. I mean, that's a hard one, but that's where I would go. And
Would you put Charlie Joyner ahead of that group or behind?
ahead.
Ahead.
The Joiner's ahead of them.
So Joyner slots in ahead of them.
Yeah.
And then Don Hudson is hard for me to judge.
Yeah.
So old school. We talked about the civil rights aspect of this debate. If every African-American player was allowed to play at that time, would Don Hudson have had the numbers that he had? People, you look at the film, I mean, he was making catches that were insane in an era where it was tough to, it wasn't part of the offense, right? It wasn't the natural piece.
Right.
He's the outlier there. I agree with the rest of it with Raymond Berry and Lance Allworth. Again, these are guys who changed the position, right? So I give them that pioneering quality.
And this is kind of early 70s, right?
60s.
Late
into 70s,
60s?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And Charlie Joyner, of course, goes into the 80s.
Yeah.
Into the Dan Fouts era with
Right.
Fred Biletnikoff,
Fred
who has
Biletnikoff.
an award named after him in college football. Again, great running games, though. So Fred Biletnikoff statistically,
Yeah.
right? Great hands, but statistically.
Right. He wasn't blown by many people.
No, for me, possession receivers, some of my favorites that I couldn't get on this list, but I want to make sure I'm surfacing them so you can tell me James Lofton, Lynn Swann, Andre Reed.
So Swan was the guy I was raring to call out. Man, I mean, Swan could make the catches, but he also was acrobatic, athletic, agile, and I think he
Not
had
huge.
not big.
Guy who could run.
Right. And then who was the other ones you mentioned? The just aside from
That
Swan.
run was Andre Reed, James Lofton, a couple of guys who played for the Bills in the Jim Kelly era. Andre Reed, the possession guy, James Lofton, the home run hitter. I could also throw with Lynn Swann, if you want to move up to the Roethlisberger era, Hines Ward, right? The early days of Big Ben.
A guy that really was not just known for his route running, his catching, his smarts, but a versatile guy that could run the football on a reverse and could block.
Yeah.
That might be the best notorious blocker ever in the game.
I'll throw one more at you because of the way he could block when needed.
Yeah.
Steve Smith.
Yeah.
Steve Smith Sr.
Right.
would smoke you.
Yeah.
Right.
Undersized.
I mean, basically, they're creating crackback block rules to stop Steve Smith from lighting people up in the chin.
Yeah, and one other local guy that I could block his tail off was Herman Moore, and really paid attention to detail and blocking, setting up angles, a cerebral guy that knew the game, had a feel for the game. And really early on in his career, when he wasn't catching the football as well, he had some issues his first or second year that a lot of people may not remember, but he was the run blocking receiver that they leaned on, and he just got better and better and better, and he was so smart. It set up, I mean, you look at Barry Sanders' highlights.
Yeah, Herman Moore gets very, very little credit. And Herman Moore is a very nice segue for us into the final group.
Okay,
so...
Yeah, I kind of jumped the era a bit.
No, but I will mention guys statistically who were fantastic. Like
please do.
Andre Johnson, Sterling Sharp, Tim Brown, not only Heisman Trophy winners and great college players, but these guys put up massive statistics. Yards per catch was sick for a guy like Tim Brown, and he could return kicks.
Yeah.
Definitely guys who could do it all. Brett Favre's number one target and Sterling Sharp.
Still have nightmares about that connection.
But the final group for me, you tell me which guys you would pull into this group or take out of this group, is Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson. That's the segue from Herman Moore, because the second best receiver in Lions history is Herman Moore. I don't think anybody is going to make a really strong debate looking at the empirical evidence of a 9-year career that was just impeccable at every level than Calvin Johnson. Then you've got Steve Largent and Jerry Rice. I uttered the name.
Man, Rice. Yeah.
But the name that statistically just blows the mind what he was able to accomplish. Now, sure, you can say he had Joe Montana and Steve Young, but Jerry Rice simply cannot be touched statistically.
Yeah.
Over
even in an era that, I mean, it was the West Coast offense. It was a new era, but Rice did so many things well, and what a better team guy. And he came from nowhere. Like, he came from
Mississippi Valley State.
Yeah, like he came out of Mississippi Valley State. When was he even drafted? Was he? I know I'm throwing some things out there.
1985.
But, yeah.
All right. He comes out of Mississippi Valley State and goes on to play 284 NFL football games. Most of them for the San Francisco 49ers. 15 of them with the San Francisco 49ers. Multiple Super Bowls. 22,895 receiving yards. Nobody is within a country mile.
In the 80s primarily.
Of him. 197 touchdowns.
Wow.
If you had a 10-year career, okay, like many NFL stars do. Jim Brown played 9 years. Barry played 9 or 10 years. Right? Gale Sayers played 6 years. Right? Some of these great players had, especially in earlier eras. This guy goes for 197 touchdowns. Do that by season.
That's like 20 touchdowns a year.
At the receiver position.
Yeah, in an era that was not a passing era.
And he finished his career with Oakland and Seattle.
Did he really?
Yeah. He had a pretty decent run there with Oakland. The half a season with Seattle at the end, the 04, was the end of the road for him. But didn't play too long. Wasn't one of these guys that got aged out so badly. In the 15 seasons that he played in San Francisco, if he would have never done anything else, he'd be the all-time greatest.
No,
he didn't need those years with Oakland.
No, and that's a hard list. I mean, that's a hard four to kind of judge. But Rice did it all, and he did it. A lot of those were shorter completions too. Some of them. These were not like, that offense was predicated on 5-yard out routes, and this guy was able to take that offense to new heights. Be a deep threat, be a short threat. He could at all 3 levels of the receiving game.
And you hated him. You hated to watch him beat the Lions. We went through some terrible battles against him.
Yeah.
But you respected his game so much. I heard from many insiders over the years that by the end of Jerry Rice's career, even in the middle, really, he was probably running a 4.8 40. Man. But his change of gears, his ability to make you think he was running at the top end of it and then go another gear to lure you in and then make his routes pivot on that change of speed. The way guys run routes today with their change of speed into the break, that's Jerry Rice started that. Right? The whole change of speed into the break, deceleration, acceleration, depending on where you are in the field, where the soft spots in the zone are, right? Settling in and not running out of being open, right? That kind of stuff. A lot of that is the feel of what Jerry Rice brought to football.
Yeah, and it was just reps, hard work, like true balance of ability. But like you said, a 4.8 at some point. At his peak, he was maybe a 4.6 guy. Yeah, maybe at the peak of his career.
Maybe.
I mean, you're having to do a lot of things.
Probably a 4.6 plus, 4.68, 4.67.
Yeah. No, you're right. Those are technical things that you can just, you can work on, but it's something you can't teach. Also, you got to feel the head fake, the eyes, the shoulders.
Yes.
As a receiver, you've got all your tools, and there's all kinds of things that you can do with shoulders, eyes, sounds. Like, you can really sell certain things.
I want you to run through your take on Calvin Johnson, Steve Largent, and Randy Moss and order them up for me. Largent, to me, had the best hands that I've ever seen. Randy Moss, the best athlete at the position that I've ever seen. And Calvin Johnson, the best mix of everything, right? I mean, physically, if Calvin Johnson plays another 6-7 years the way Jerry Rice did with his career, the Megatron might be in the conversation standing next to Jerry Rice on the podium, because the thing that people forget about Calvin Johnson, he did it. He had 1,300 yards on an 0-16 team. He had 12 touchdowns, 13 touchdowns, 1,300 yards on an 0-16 team with Dan frickin' Orlovsky chucking the rock to him. There's no comparison between what the rest of these guys had at the quarterback position and what Calvin Johnson had at the quarterback position during his career. That's got to mean something. I'm going to let you run on those names.
I believe you have to put Randy Moss at the top of that list, only because there were so many things that Moss could do just to break a game open, and I believe that Calvin certainly had that ability, but Moss had that game breaker, the deep ball. People were scared of Randy Moss, and they should have been scared of Calvin Johnson too. I think Moss played longer, and I think that the fact that he had more longevity just edges him out of Calvin just a little bit. Calvin, a quiet assassin, a good teammate. Yeah, he left early and upset his fans, but it's a really tough debate. But I'm going to have to say Moss playing longer and the ability to do things without the size that Calvin had. Calvin had the physical tools, and it's not something that you should debit him for. But I think Moss did more things, came out of Marshall, wasn't as high of a draft pick. So I'm going to put Moss, Johnson, and Largent. Poor Largent, I mean, just wasn't, I believe, he didn't have enough game-breaking ability, and maybe that's not fair. But I believe you have to be a game breaker, a guy that if you needed to get 3rd and 17 and you had to beat a guy, sure, Largent would catch it and Largent would run a good route, but he didn't have the tools and ability that Moss and Johnson had to make that spectacular play. And I think because of his size. But yeah, I would go Moss, Johnson, Largent. And it's a really difficult trio to rank. But yeah, I think Moss, Johnson, Largent is the trio and the route in the order that I would run it at.
If you had to plug in one sleeper, one guy that you never thought got the respect, like Calvin Johnson, might not have had the quarterback play, who would that one sleeper be if you were trying to even flesh out a top 10?
Andre Rison. Andre Rison was a guy that was a game breaker. He was a fierce, nasty competitor. He would knock your block off. He was tough, fast, and had everything you'd want.
Played point guard in Division I basketball.
That too. I forgot about that. Was able to maintain a marriage with Left Eye Lopez for some time. I mean, there's a lot of good things about him. Came out of Flint.
She burned his house down. So I don't know I know exactly the maintenance of that marriage. I think is questionable.
The first 4 years, though, he maintained it. He maintained it with her. He kept it together. And then she burnt the house down. But, yeah, I think Andre Rison's one of those guys.
Bad Moon Rison. But greatest nickname maybe in the history of sports. Bad Moon Rison.
No doubt. No doubt. And now his son, he actually just took, Andre Rison just took wide receiver coaching job at University Liggett, Grosse Pointe University Liggett.
Wow.
Yeah, under Kevin Glenn.
Keeping it local.
Yeah. Kevin Glenn, who played 18 years in the Canadian Football League professionally out of Detroit de Porres. Anyhow.
Detroit St. Martin de Porres.
There you go. That's fair.
Let's get the whole thing in there. Tiny Thompson, the legend, coaching from a wheelchair, from crutches, from a cane.
Yeah.
Coaching all of the greats.
Oh, we got to do a Catholic League segment, don't we?
Shannon McLean. My good Rodney Culver.
Yeah, God rest his soul.
The names that came out of that place.
We had a good reset. I interviewed him actually on Saturday. He was just named, Kevin Glenn was named the head coach at the University of Liggett for football. And
University of Michigan. You brought up Go Blue.
Yeah.
All right. Is it Desmond Howard, Anthony Carter, or Braylon Edwards? Who's the GOAT?
Oh, man, there's some really good ones there. I still think you got to go Desmond Howard, Anthony Carter, Braylon Edwards. But there's some thought there, and that's a really good debate.
And Michigan State, you go Andre Rison, Charles Rogers,
Kurt Gibson.
Oh, geez, I wasn't even going to put Gibson.
I mean, he's probably not going to make it. But yeah.
The draft pick that was just before Charles Rogers, Plaxico Burress.
Yeah.
Plaxico Burress.
That's right.
Charles Rogers, Andre Rison. I mean, how do you stack those three?
I mean, Charles Rogers, people want to judge him on his pro career and what happened. That's fine. But if you put him on his college career, there was nobody better that wore the green and white.
No, Saginaw High, baby.
Yeah, there was nobody better that wore that green and white as a receiver. And then I think, I'd have to go Plaxico number 2, and then the latter number 3, but Rison. But yeah, we've been blessed with some great wide receivers in this state, and
we already mentioned Greg Jennings, the great Green Bay Packer from Western Michigan, with Corey Davis having a better career than him still floating around the NFL. There have been some fantastic wide receivers.
And we touched on it early. We haven't touched on it since, and I know he's gone off the rails, but Antonio Brown, where do you place him? If you're going to go Michigan State, cool. Then let's go a Mid-American Conference, Michigan, the directional schools.
Sure.
I mean, Antonio Brown, Greg Jennings, Corey Davis.
There's one from Bowling Green. His name escapes me, but Bowling Green has one of the all-time leading receivers in the history of college football.
They do, and that name escapes me as well. But there's just so many good playmakers, and especially in eras that the pass game just wasn't part of the main priority.
Yeah. So we're going to break down the final list here. Our top 10 as broken down here in our last conversation. It starts with Marvin Harrison at 10, Chris Carter at 9, Raymond Berry at 8, Larry Fitzgerald at 7, Charlie Joyner at 6, Terrell Owens at 5, Randy Moss at 4, Calvin Johnson at 3, Steve Largent at 2, Jerry Rice is your GOAT. Number 1 of all time. Sad to say it, but the San Francisco 49ers wide receiver catching the rock from Joe Montana and Steve Young over his illustrious career. He simply defined the position and leads every relevant category. Chad Bush, thank you for joining me on GOATQuest and adding your subject matter expertise to both the wide receiver position and the microphone with all of the debate that we had over sports broadcasters. This won't be the last time you visit us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. GOATQuest is a lot of fun, and I know it's just the beginning. Love what you're doing. I think this is a really, really cool niche. And, man, honored you to ask me to come in to talk about wide receivers, and sorry to transition it into broadcasting at times. But
we got 2 lists out of you. That's what it's all about. We're economizing.
Versatile.
The Bushmaster, Chad Bush, thank you very much. And GoQuest will be back at you next time. Thanks. Have a good one.